conversing on trade, but specifically, we talk about the agreement between European Union and Mercosur, and the focus basically is on also, which this is going to be ratified, was negotiated already, has already been signed last year already, and is going to be ratified. It's an agreement. Actually, there is also a lot of basically in issues that, but still, and throughout this time, being that has ups and downs and stops and resumptions and offers and trade of offers, and also but definitely there was a lot of up and downs and problems during the process, because it depended on the negotiation within the WTO, and also in advancing, coming and going, and also that expected that accelerated when the negotiations in the WTO were actually halted. And it's a long process, but still, actually, it had its negotiation completed, and it was finally signed since, let's say, an opportunity with this government back in Argentina, who was extremely conservative and pro-entrepreneurs, and now actually he's being accused of corruption because of the debt that he left behind in Argentina, huge debt, huge loans that he made with IMF, with actually with a lot of questions in terms of this indebtedness of Argentina. Has a terrible or the worst indebtedness in Argentina ever. And there's the largest credit made by IMF with little transparency in the conditions to render this loan. In Brazil, we have Bolsonaro's administration. This not government is this government. As a government actually that comes from the coup d'etat into office, and it's a project that comes to dismantle the well-being state that Brazil used to have, and we only have actually just traces left behind of the welfare state you used to have. It's an administration that has a lot of actually, and we are to see what is going to happen, because he's still in power, but he won the elections. It's not the elections, it came to office because of the coup d'etat. We still don't know what the consequences will be when he leaves office. He's been denounced many times, not only here, but internationally. He's been denounced for crimes. So also this is the window of opportunities that was used when both countries, most important countries in the Southern Cone, and this administration is dedicated to a commercial liberalization process. Also, they also were dedicated to dismantle actually the welfare state. And in that state, the European Union also saw this window of opportunity and make the most of it, because also has a deep economic crisis in terms of the international geopolitical process of the European Union is shaken by its role in the midst of the hegemonic struggle between the US and against China, and also against Russia. European Union itself also needs for to improve its economic situation, needs to extend its possibilities of having further trade. This would be an opportunity in that they actually took the most of also to advance their economy. So the agreement, the accord actually was agreed or negotiated and signed but it still has to be ratified by the parliaments. And this process is, it has also ups and downs and many problems. There are many parts involved that now are against the agreement. They are working so as to avoid this ratification. Well, basically, be it on European side and Mercosur side, actually also, well, actually within Mercosur is suffering from actually fragmentation and dismantling of our structure. We learned that Uruguay now took its, actually is starting its very own negotiations. It's not very clear yet, but there's a fragmentation that started long ago, but obviously enough, these governments that we have in the country, in the four Mercosur countries, the four members to Mercosur, have, let's say, they are conservative governments, and they are not seen as, but and they do, especially countries that do have a completely different visual, and but we have a subordination. Yeah, they're subordinated to the United States. There's little integration, of course, in sovereign projects. Argentina is a weakened position currently. The president has a different political orientation because because actually this wants in regional integration, but he's isolated in the process. I would start the debate stating that this issue of the European Union has brought a very strong debate in the Brazilian society and European Union on the impact that will be produced by this agreement, especially in the Amazon region, in the Brazilian ecosystems and the savanna in Brazil. This agreement might, like when it drive the position of agribusiness. We know that has a very dire effect, let's say, bringing many problems, causing many problems for Brazilian ecosystems, especially the Amazon rainforest, because of the will of this agribusiness sector to increase its production and exportation. And also this has been a focus of attention of the negotiators, the civil society, be it on the Brazilian side and also the different countries and Europe as well. A lot of focus is being made, a relevant role also has to be played by the indigenous populations, that they are defending their territories. They're defending their territories against deforestation and the signature of this agreement. They have actually a very important role to play within the denunciation of these agreements in that sense. There will be big losses for the native populations in Brazil. But other themes that generate impacts of women, these impacts actually didn't have the same attention. They are very relevant for us to think in those impacts. Actually, also we used to make the studies years ago. I brought them with me so that you can see what we used to do in the past also. We made several publications of very relevant analysis and deep analysis we made on gender and trade impacts of the trade liberalization of lives of women in Brazil and also in the different countries in the region, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile. Well, the, it's a study and analysis not only on work, but also the other aspects of life in women. So actually, we already have some important materials that have been prepared, and no many changes have been made in the last 10 or 15 years. Unfortunately, we still have the same situation. So we are up kind of updating the the debate so we can place these women work or women's jobs or the impacts of trade liberalization in the workplace on women, on the when the actually the remunerated work that women have access to. This is it. This was my opening remarks. I just wanted to frame our debate. Now I give the floor to Marta Castillo and by Kathleen later, who are going to be making a presentation. The also the actually with these two speakers, I want to thank them both already for their participation, and I wanted to thank them for making themselves available for this debate. Welcome. And okay, you have the floor, ladies. It's Marta who goes first, right? Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, all those people who are participating too. That it's a pleasure being today brought by Garciela, but to hold this debate today with you, promoted by the cycle of debates sponsored by Rebrip. Rebrip has been important in terms of these topics. And we have been working actually on the trade flow. We also, together with Kathleen, we were instigated by Graciela to prepare a paper on REFRIP and on delving on the impact of this agreement for between Mercosur and European Union on women and the impact it has on women. So we are going to be presenting part of the paper that we already have prepared and made available that in reality it actually includes part of the impacts that we have to consider analyzing the impact on trade and the impact of trade agreements on women. And also are going to be discussing, we start discussing on a broader base this interaction between trade and women. And then we are going to be delving on different aspects related to Mercosur with emphasis on women. Well, we both are economists. We were trained into a tradition. We both come from the actually Federal University Economics Institute that has a less traditional orientation, is more heterodox in economics. Still, we still have a training that I would say that in reality induced us to believing economic science is neutral, and that and also it has equal treatment for those who are unequally inserted in the society. So just as economic issues and trade are are seen through the lens of economic analysis as being neutral for women and other groups, but we have to say that it's gender neutral. But fortunately, we have seen not only in terms of economics, also that is recognized that social groups, different groups that come from different social origin come from different characteristic groups. Now they have different types of insertion in the job market, and also we have overlappings, interesting overlappings in terms of, and also we have deeper differentiations. For example, we know in the job market, we already know that Black women are the group that that have actually the worst jobs in the market. So unfortunately here, we just mentioned this item, but we believe that this analytic effort has been made, including all the different groups, actually. So to have a better understanding, we going back to the topic of today, we are going to be analyzing what are also we might think also the international trade, how much it does affect women, has an effect on women. Economy itself, uh, and I like this expression, this economy actually, and is a gender barrier, actually. And I love this. It's a gender barrier structure. I don't know, perhaps we are talking too fast, but men and women occupy differentiated positions, be it in productive economy and also in reproductive economic terms. We can start on the impact of trade on the lives of women, and we have to have the recognition of different changes in the flows in trade that do affect the lives of women through jobs, and there will be affecting the lives of women. And we see there are different channels that transmit this impact. The most obvious would be the job market. To start from the job market, we have to state something. The job market, we have actually the job market, the mercantile market, also in different formats known as productive market, and also it is productive, as I said before. But there is also what we see, other activities and occupations that in reality are outside this scope. This work that is recognized as reproductive, with the reproduction of the society, we can discuss this concept, but still, anyways, we here are saying what statistics call of domestic activities. I don't know if the word is right, but still, those are tasks, activities that are chores that are big, actually, in that are outside the mercantile sphere and are dedicated to reproducing the society. Talk about care activities, cares of people that have problems, or children, people with disability, or the elderly, and actually taking care of home chores and home care activities. This is include also as domestic activities. So the job market already is makes a differentiation between men and women. Let's say it's obvious, as we know already, and still this, and also we have a other factor, which is poverty and inequality, and we have also consumption beyond the specific mechanism, actually of the link between trade and gender, the adoption of certain trade political orientations, for example, in zone for actually for exportation, or to incentivize exportation. And also this is inserted in with a broader orientation, the economic sphere. It leads to trade liberalization, privatization, and deregulation. They can also affect the different profile of poverty and inequality. And here I repeat once again, we have to understand that actually the poverty don't affect everybody on the same level. We see statistics that have been analyzed that if, for example, the profile of the different families, the way their growing number, I would say, of families, actually they're headed by women, certain phenomena will affect, have a different effect on families as well, as especially women will be affected because they are actually the bread earners. And we also we have effect on we affect consumption. It will be changing different actually mechanisms in those a certain group will be most affected than others because the importation tariffs also might change, and they will depend also, and these goods that are actually consumed according to the social group actually people belong to. And another topic related to consumption is through so the care economy to facilitate actually these activities. Basically, they are in hands of women. Also, I try to be uh, to bring details of these important issues. Okay, and we can discuss it later when we talk about the job market and reproductive activities or reproductive jobs. Here also we know that, for example, we were talking about the adoption on the signing on the Mercosur European Union Accord within actually within with three right-wing governments here in the region. Actually these governments they also support these initiatives and other liberalization measures also that are revisited by these governments in this region. And trade is also a small part of the liberal agenda and also dismantling of the state that was deepened throughout this current administration. As Graciela said before, then trade will affect actually the other mechanisms, but it doesn't come by itself. It's a set of different policies and of certain orientation in political terms, and also, and as we see, that will affect more women than men because a huge of measures that are being adopted so as to deepen this neoliberal agenda, reduction of the state, given an important role to the market, and also illiberalization of the market, privatization, deregulation, and other policies that are being favored by this type of administration that we have in these countries, members to Mercosur. Within this context, but see, we have already talked about this agreement, but within this scenario, where you have changes in the orientation of policies and also have a country, which is Brazil, that actually in a path of what we call regressive specialization. What it is, what does this mean? We mean that a country actually that there's a specialization actually with a trend towards increasing its exports of products, less sophisticated products, and we are saying that we are increasing our exports of products, industrialized products, sophisticated products, cars, for example, and materials and equipment, and uh, and uh, and also we see that more than even that, we are increasingly exporting let's say, let me know if I'm extending myself too much. Also, let's say within, we see the year 2000 used to export as a soya bean, and the soya bean, we went from exporting basically soybean oil, and now exporting grain, soybean grain within those sectors where they say our products, they went actually that was a change actually the profile in this product that has been exported. And we have to see that until 2011 or 2014, I believe, in 2012 actually, we this was very clearly clear in foreign trade, but not so much from the of the actually of the production, given the crisis that we had in the country, actually in the domestic economy, actually in terms of lack of investment, this process actually has caused a loss in sophistication in this product. In this context, we see the signature actually of pre-COVID era of the Mercosur European Union agreement or accord. There are some characteristics that I would like to call your attention you that will have an impact on or those aspects that I believe that are most relevant from the point of view of the concept that may bring on women. And in the first place, we start from a situation in when productive trade specialization actually we see a situation in which in the specialization path we see the European Union, at least all those countries were still maintaining actually the most sophisticated sectors, even though it's highly diversified in bilateral trade. This type of trade, the trade has a different profile in which the countries in Mercosur that basically export farm and mineral products, be it manufactured products or not, and they do, and also they export to European Union and they import more sophisticated products, or they export cars, chemical products. Those allows to have a trade balance, let's say, that there is which is very asymmetrical from the in terms of industrial production. Also, important for European market or Mercosur and Mercosur, the European market is much less than the important the European has for the South American countries. It's an asymmetrical situation, and this is an important asymmetry to be considered. The makeup of and also in terms of competitiveness, do we have at this time we see that the agreement is being signed, and also it's a big agreement. It's a new generation of accords. It goes beyond trade, including themes, topics, and different disciplines that actually jeopardize the use of certain and determined public policies and instruments solely for the social and economic development of country. For example, public procurements. Also, the regulation of intellectual property or investment agreements, those are disciplines that have been approached, addressed, and also until recently Brazil actually was still distant from all of this. It had kept a certain distance because it was believed that they had limitations in terms of public procurement. So these topics actually, actually effectively are included in this agenda. I'm sorry, you have to wait for her mic to come back. And Brazil starts to include it actually in its frameworks. We still there's a part on cooperation agreements that I believe that now so less poorly seen, that in the past we have the hope that that we might improve in terms actually to democratic freedoms, the respect to human rights, on the also sustainable development and respect to human rights and guarantee democratic liberties. Also, which should be included in this cooperation agreement is been this all those clauses should be definitely enshrined. And then in in this agreement that has been signed is signed in the midst of the comeback of the conservative administrations in the southern cone. This asymmetries in terms of conditions of what's been negotiated in general. What we see, there was a trade or commercial liberalization and other related topics too. Also this also the Europe, the study of the European knows that the European has much more to gain than all the countries together in the Southern Cone. To finalize, I just would like to show Graciela has already mentioned the uncertainties in terms of the approval of the agreement in its formal or final version. There's a possibility of applying the agreement actually in segments, be it, let's imagine, European Parliament actually wants to ratify this agreement because of environmental issues. Well, then the European Commission may propose actually its implementation in the commercial terms. So, and therefore it will be hard to resolve these problems because our environmental situation is kind of dire currently because of the government that we have in office. And finally, something that has to be mentioned is that all of this is very important for the advancement, for actually for other agreements that might come along the lines, and Brazil can be starting signing other accords and agreements that are already on the table. And it does represent the issue of this agreement actually does affect the relationship. Actually, it was two blocks important, but it opens up a new possibility of generating or actually generating other negotiations with different countries. And this can be very fruitful, opening new doors for new possibilities. I believe that CLI can stop here, and I'm going to leave Kathleen to carry on with the presentation. Thank you. Thank you. I like you. I'm very glad. I like having you here. I'm very happy. And you actually made a great explanation on the first part of the analysis when talking between Brazil, the situation between Brazil and European Union. Now let's go to Catherine with the second part of my presentation. The president, thank you very much. She says, I want to thank you all for being with us. I'm going to be delving on the exercise that we made to try to better understand the impacts of this agreement. Let's see, I'm going to be start sharing my screen. Kathleen Ferreira states. Here, well, as Marta has already stated, one of the most direct ways of us be able to understand a trade agreement actually, or the change in economy, what will be the impacts on the lives of women, is got to see to paid jobs. Also, when we are making an analysis on jobs, kind of jobs actually in different dimensions. For example, we can analyze the jobs associated to internal or domestic consumption, or jobs can be analyzed under the sense of exportations, understanding that the for to see the Brazilian economy not necessarily is the same thing when we do when we see both lenses. When we talk about international trade, we have actually the actually domestic jobs that are created by exportations, and we have also the lens of importations also but could also be understood as the almost possibilities, but and we have also this trade relationships. When we talk about international trade, also we can see the jobs associated to trade, international trade, can have to differentiate among different trade partners in the country. Once again, also in the Brazilian economy, actually, and we see that some sectors have different job characteristics from the viewpoint of the worker, be it also we see the jobs has characteristic that depends on the job offering. Some jobs are better, have a better formality, more stability, better salary. There also, because the worker may desire a job more than others. Another issue also in terms of the job market in Brazil, you have to understand when we see the job market data in Brazil, so we see 2018 data, we may have to make a differentiation, and we say that women are discriminated here. There are seven values in the Brazilian job market. We can to focus only in two items: the total population and the jobs rate. When we talk about total population, but we see their jobs in the labor market, paid jobs. Today have actually the rate of their share drops drastically. They have no big representation in the labor, the job market. So we say, why is it that yes, women have less access to jobs? In this, we have this question also in the interviewees in the survey. You see also women. Why are they don't look for a job? Because they have to care for the family, for the houses, their children, and other relatives, perhaps. Indefinitely, and we see 32% then in case of men now. They have to take care of the house and also the children, the relatives, and men only take care of the family, and only 3% get 32% of women. And with our data that women take care of the children and of the family members or the elderly. It's a feminine population. It's a feminized type of activity. Women should occupy these spaces, also domestic spaces, and then when women have this public space. And as we can see, this strong devaluation, devalorization of domestic space makes actually turns this situation into an advantage for men. Responsibility for these activities would be something that's inherent by nature, actually, which be made only by women, apparently. According to the mindset, the disequalities in the job market also can be seen through different variables. I bring up only three. Well, you see these clear inequalities, then we have to see the different characteristics. Let's say in paid jobs, remunerated jobs, well, actually women are underrepresented. For example, we can see also when we are to analyze the dedication to paid jobs, 14 hours a day, the women's participation is of 66%, much lower than the have in the job market as a whole. When we see the non-remunerated, non-paid jobs associated to activities activities of care and house chores and care related to the care economy, how many more hours women are dedicate to this. It's women basically are dedicated to this. If we see also the remunerated hours and also as of 40 hours of a week, the women represent 90%. It's a clear difference when you see women in terms of activity associated to reproductive economy and the care economy, or when we see women participation in or having access to paid jobs. Something that I would like to highlight is the time of stay on the job. This average time is lower than men's stay on the job. The women don't, in average, they only stay 8.8 years on the job, and the women stay 10.3 years on one single job. Another point that women are more discriminated, we talk about actually the salaries of women for men corresponds to 90% of men's pay check. Actually, in the job market, women in average can guarantee only 90% of what the women make. So we are talking actually average gain per hour. When we see the women, as we saw in this survey, women dedicate more time to reproductive economy activity than productive activity. We see men generate actually that also men occupy the outer space, and the outspace, I mean jobs outside the house, and also because women have less time available because they have to care for other activities in the house, in the household, and also women make much less money than men. We already know that. Still, we see also we have to talk about jobs and also national domestic jobs in the whole economy, and also here national jobs as directly and indirectly associated to Brazilian exportations. And also we see that 12.4 million of jobs are directly or indirectly associated to Brazilian exportation. When we see the women's share, also we see also where the women are underrepresented, but you see that's again worse. Women correspond to 28.6% the total of women that have a job, while previously they also represented over 43%. Anyways, these calculations actually should be considered because the women here also represent 8% of all the women have jobs in the economy. What do we know? jobs associated to exportations destined to European Union, we have of around 2 million jobs that are generated. The women's share in these 2 million jobs represent actually less than 30% of rate. Okay, analyzing now, going actually the jumps that stem or association to exportation 2018, one thing that I would like to state now is the jobs that are associated here to exportations, also in terms of farm products, of also to livestock and forest products and fishing products. They are mainly actually dedicated to the European Union's market. And so also, can you go slower, please, a little slower? No, people just actually actually as time goes by, people tend to speak faster. Another point which is actually should be stressed as of this table, that, that's for women factors, creative industry are not represented when you see actually the women's jobs, unlike what happens with men, which is the sectors might not be so important, but they're still present. They not have so much weight because of the makeup of the Brazilian population. Then here we see this another indication of an horizontal segregation in the job market. We say the women, because they're women, have no space to work in every sector. In this sense, the women will be more associated to activities that end up by kind of reproducing similar activities associated to social reproduction and also and will be more related to the care economy. Also, when after having making the estimated the amount of jobs related to export, we see what would be the quality of the jobs that come from exports. And we see also we see for total export for to the European Union and exports to the European Union in total exportation, and also for men, for women, I'm sorry, first for women, then for men, and then for women and men together. Associated jobs associated to the job market as the one that has has one of the highest qualities that also are associated to exports. We have here, it's based on remuneration or per hour, pay per hour of each one of the sectors. Also the time of stay in also in terms of participation of uh, of a job of management and also informal based on the formal sector. Here we have the different results in added value terms. And what we can see very clearly as a conclusion in Jane, considering all the characteristics of the job market, that obviously actually that include actually that we have to consider different characteristics in the job market. Jobs actually associated to the job market as a whole can have a low, better quality than the jobs associated just to exports, be it export, total export, or just go to the European Union. It is true also then we see the quality of jobs associated to the export of European Union. We believe that these jobs have a better quality compared to the quality of jobs associated to total exports, but also it depends on the product to be exports into which country. Another point in this table shows and we might question, we perceive when we are to compare the quality in when men and women, the total job market, we can see the quality of women's jobs would be approximately 4% lower than the quality of men jobs. But when we are to compare women and men also in jobs related to total exportations and to the European Union, to these results change. In that sense, it seems that women's jobs would be slightly better than men's jobs in terms of quality of the job. And we reach a possible conclusions that make us understand that it has contributed to inequalities between both groups. But in essence, what we can observe that men's job have a deteriorations in terms of quality based on those variables, more even greater deterioration than women's jobs. The quality of both genders' jobs are is dropping. It's complicated to say that would be they say it's worse for men now, but it's not true. Basically, it's a deterioration of the quality for jobs for both genders. Let's go on, please. Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Kathleen, for your presentation. Samantha, you would like to conclude, perhaps? You would like to say something to wrap up your presentation? As we go to the Q&A session, I believe also we can see you are going to analyze the European Mercosur agreement. I think that it can be extrapolated to other agreements. Of course, making differences. They have a type of trade, as you said, we have a different type of trade, the European Union, which is different, as we say, from the trade that we have with the South American countries and with the United States, which, which is different, of course, and also have primary products. So there is a 75% or even more actually between the North-South trade, more specialization, but it's more regressive in terms of the trade with the European Union, which brings perspectives of a bad liberalization from the viewpoint of economic dynamisms and the consequences that it might have on women. On the one hand, from the viewpoint of exports, we tend to deepen this specialization in farm products and that generate poor jobs or bad jobs or less jobs in time. It's not family farming that is being exported, it's incentivized, it's agribusiness that is being incentivized with dire mechanization consequences, with a growing deterioration also from environmental perspective and also with concentration of income. On the one hand, is an agreement that is related to this activity to discourages the development of industrial activities, be it through more imports of products coming from the European Union, or later on even from China, or through these other disciplines that I mentioned, public procurements or intellectual property rights. Public procurements is of high concern to me in this agreement. What are public procurements? It's a reserve or an instrument actually the governments have of contracting companies for certain services. This what United States actually does. And also United States already always also use the purchasing power of the Pentagon or the government or the military to incentivize the technological development of the development of American companies or whatever. So we could, or Brazil, let's say through the Lula administration of Petrobras actually valued this policy. The And also the companies also also in Brazil, at least of the oil business, actually used or made contracts with domestic country companies. It's good from the technological point of view, the productive point of view. So it's because the probes were by actually were domestically manufactured. This is a very important instrument, and we are actually we're renouncing also because with this agreement, let's say a small company in Brazil in the periphery of the big city actually will not have the competitiveness. It cannot be compared with a multinational corporation actually that it comes from Europe. It's obvious that actually is unfavorable competition for small businesses in Brazil. And we had actually the economic crisis caused also many small businesses to fail or at least to be weakened in this possibility. So actually, this is actually much more beneficial for the European Union than for Brazil. Only the multinational corporations will be favored by this type of accord. This is very important. This agreement might also that the exports can generate fewer jobs, bad quality jobs, and apparently that might through the data might be seen the jobs that are being generated in the agreement with the European Union are those jobs that are better for women. It might be said from the viewpoint of production. Listen, this is definitely not true. What happens in reality, also we are less distant from men. The numbers are get closer to numbers actually in men. See that actually but actually we are all in a worst situation, be it men and also women. So I believe this is what I would like to call your attention. There are other aspects to be pondered as well. We still have to consider the impacts of these trade agreements and these agreements in terms of the care economy, especially on these jobs. But the exits that are not invisible. Also, it's a yeah, so exactly we have to think about the jobs performed by women. We also have to consider environmental issues that do affect specific groups, like in the case of the indigenous populations with deforestation. And also we have to discuss also other factors as well. I think that this will be the end of these comments for now. Thank you.
Ok.
Okay,
Isso, muitos
actually,
aspectos
there are
aqui
many
para falar
aspects
sobre
also.
isso,
We are
mas
just pinpointing a few
eu
to
percebo
this
que tudo que
conversation.
falava
Also, one is also
anteriormente,
what we were saying
que
is
o estudo que a Kate fez levanta
this the analysis you
a
made
vantagem
raises the advantage that women have in terms of schooling
melhor
and
qualificada.
have a better qualified labor
As pessoas que têm
because people who have a
12
degree
anos de estudo,
as we have of the
ou
12 years in
mais
schooling, the percentage of women we have higher schooling rates than men.
não
But
vai
this agreement is not going to be favoring, is not going to take advantage of the better qualification of women. This actually, this implements actually because actually push this the upwards. So somehow you start to actually to improve every job in this case. It should be like this. But please read the papers that are to be published. You see them, can download them for the Rebi webpage. Other aspects that we can already see, the labor reform. that has just been passed by this this administration that we have, which is not natural administration, is coup d'etat. Actually, is the we consider the Brazil cost in nature also it is the labor cost, not the Brazil cost. With the Brazil cost in reality, we can see with a terrible unemployment rate like we have, the amount of people that are not looking for a job anymore, in reality, the possibilities of positive results of this agreement actually dwindle. But especially, it's my belief, as we have already discussed here, now, so this, the industrialization so precarious in Brazil, and we are living decentralization process, it will be a factor more even the best women's jobs in the country. To the sector, they put added value in the products that can produce better jobs, and also and also should profit from this better qualification of women have. And also this won't happen because, as Marta and Kenny said, because there's jobs are worse jobs in terms of exportation that will go up. There are farm products that have less women and less qualified jobs and lower wages. Of course, there's so many issues that we would like to discuss, but since we are going to ask a few questions that have been posed to our presenters, one of the questions would be, what's your opinion in terms of the implications on women because the liberalization of the financial services provision and banks in general? We have some unionists here that are concerned with sub underemployment. I would add to this the so-called digital economy that is causing enormous problems in terms of generation of good jobs, because there's a substitution of the of jobs in the service sector, especially where we, actually because of where we find more women, and the impacts of the also in these agreements. Also, the asymmetry between Mercosur and the European Union in terms of development of the digital economies or artificial intelligence, whatever the technologies are there already, and we are going backwards in terms of developments in science and technology. We can't even face this technological revolution, and we'll have to live this impact, and especially women in the area of services, the financial services, or commerce and trade. Definitely, we have actually a terrible impact, especially, I repeat, on women. Those are the questions that were actually that I read from the chat box. Can I respond?
Acho que eu posso comentar um pouquinho, você completar, com certeza você, você vai saber melhor. Mas, assim, do pouco que eu entendo dessa área, são
What I understand first, the impact on the economy, we have to see, we have been discusses, they have to better understand other aspects as Gabriela said, but in general, women have difficulty having access to jobs. I don't see that liberalization will bring advantage to the women. I don't think so, but there will be an impact, no doubt. And with the automatization in general, I believe the impact on women might be also negative, since those tasks that are that the women get better access, more space in the labor market. So And this can also jeopardize jobs for women. I think that this would summarize the response I would like to give now. Yes. But in reality, the issue of greater liberalization of financial services, I believe that brings two aspects. Now, on the side of jobs per se, I believe that we could place liberalization of this sector in the issue of digitalization with equal effects, actually, and they're very perverse effect on both genders. We've seen this happening already on the side of digitalization, introduction of new technologies and machines. It's a new technology. So we see that in terms of other activities, that was activities actually the less quality job that were being replaced is advancing up to a certain extent, but once again there was appears of actually of making use of the qualified men labor or women's labor in those sectors as well, in the digital sector, in the digital economy. So on the one hand, we see that jobs, I believe that their perspectives are not good enough. And also they go along the same lines, despite the fact that we see a Brazilian financial sector, the banking sector, it could not be so more competitive. The performance is not that bad or so good if we are going to compare to the Europeans or of others of all other types of sectors. In the same way, competing with the global banks, it will be almost impossible. Also, this is on that in terms of job, probably these jobs actually there will be a negative impact on those jobs which are and we are not creating new possibilities of new jobs in the Brazilian market. Also, we accelerated also the introduction of some new technologies, of new interventions, and also in some sectors, the financial sector actually, I believe that might be different in the terms of now access to financial services on that side. I believe that I don't know, I don't know if I can talk about that. I think that there are other people that are more specialized than me. My thinking goes towards the supply or offer of jobs and how it affects women. Also, the one else thing to add, I would like to make in terms of digitalization and new technologies, I think it's another front that we are addressing as well. We are, but also it's all part and parcel of the new world of their working agenda. And we already know, once again, I repeat that as of the moment when we do recognize the the uh, the economic effects that cause on women, and since the insertion, we're talking about insertion of these groups are differently managed in the society, seen or perceived in the society, definitely the impact will be different also. So this replacement, let's say this, the effect of this used technology on the market cause different effects between men and women. Some jobs, oh no, they have actually rules in without make a differentiation between men and women of different groups or non-white population. Also, this wonderful ideal world in everybody where everybody is equal. They say also with the visa replacement, yes, they find or there's a dilemma that can have actually have a negative or positive impact on jobs. In reality, there's a positive effect on everything. You are creating an activity that's intensive and knowledge intensive that are very dynamic with good pay, so good salaries. But still, once again, it would be an ideal word in which also we are seeing under the lens, we have different positions from the different countries. Actually, in perhaps this would be better adapted for developed countries who are the leaders in the most sophisticated sectors in the whole economy. Also, what we are left as a peripheral country are the jobs that are kind of more easily replaced, not only actually a lower qualification, but also high qualification as well, but they're easily replaceable. Yes, Graciela, you would like to say something, please? We listen to you.
Microfone para não atrapalhar você.
Okay,
Essa questão da migração está
now
surgindo comentários
Now
interessantes.
we are in the deep end, a
Esse
lot of comments and questions are popping up. We talk about deindustrialization in our countries and lack of opportunities because importations will, because of importation. So someone is saying that the sector, industrial sector, where there's precarious women's jobs. So there will no growth in that sector. Also, this can be seen, actually it's not measured, but quite the opposite because of the lack of the shortage of these opportunities that are less precarious on women. The women have more education. A question from Yvette, who's asking, the industrial restructuring and the allocation of labor will be the painful restructuring process and will be made with high social cost. What is your opinion on that? The question is actually the the $1 million question. Yes, everything has to do with the restructuration in the digital economy world are bringing a lot of concern. And so, Marta, could you respond in the financial sector? It has a lot to do with digital transformation, with a restructuring process that will be very painful because of the loss of jobs at a moment in which the Brazilian economy is under the highest unemployment rates, and also the people there stopped looking for jobs, as we see in the statistics, the numbers provided by the statistic department, which is called IBGE here in Brazil. Beyond all the concern with the pandemic, because many women have lost their jobs during the pandemic, also women have lost majoritarily their jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic, because exactly also because they stop looking for a job and they have to take care of their family, and the whole family is on the is actually still at home, and they are have to work at home, take care of the children, of the family members, and this it's an unpaid job, and they also lost their jobs, and the privatization process and this liberalization also, and also the facilitation of the entrance of new corporations can even deepen this terrible situation on women. As we said, this is we have a painful restructuring scenario, and the question is, what's your opinion on this process? Well, it's Judith, actually, and I love talking to her because Judith is one of the people that actually allowed me to to start working based on this perspective of trade and gender. Is someone who has helped me, and I really admire deeply. Well, I would believe, let's say, in reality, we are adding phenomena, adding together phenomena that may cause a deterioration in the women's labor market. If we're going to see actually when we see some the best jobs are being threatened in industry and that could be generated in more sophisticated service. Some of them also, especially industrial activities, would be good paid jobs actually. And this is it in simple terms. Imports jeopardize or threaten those jobs, definitely. On the other hand, also, exports concentrate jobs in the farm sectors, even within the industrial sector, is one of the simplest sectors with those salaries. The labor conditions are not very good or are poor. In that sense, we see this points at worsening the labor market. If we see that from dynamic point of view, we are taking, as I said before, and to removing intellectual property rights of public procurement and other factors. Also, we're taking away an opportunity of stimulating and promoting certain sectors once again, because all those technological changes and transformations, they might generate products and more sophisticated services, yes, but you have better jobs. But also, this is being produced by this deregulation. And on the other hand, we have the digitalization transformation process underway. When we talk about digitalization, but for now, is promoting in this public health emergency situation we are all immersed into, which is the pandemic. That is, although this technological transformation is being promoted by the pandemic, some services are being provided by these new technologies. Well, less people, more technology, more unemployment, and also we here in Brazil. So there are surveys that show that we are far behind the introduction of these new technologies in our country. If we are behind the introduction of new technologies, also we haven't been able to act on those segments that employ people that are better for things in softwares, for example, or generating and on those more sophisticated services. And this is not, we are not being able yet, or we are not doing anything under this perspective. And also, we lose because you have less jobs available in these new transformations. Is and then it would be that's and as we can see, we can be replaced actually the people that work in gas stations for automatic gas pump dispensers. So it's not a digital possible transformation because people are losing the jobs. It's just a comparison that we are making. And these are not because it's the orientation of more liberal policies, because actually, and this might be the objective in of the agenda of our president, and we have no capacity, and we have not promoted this capacity of generating new technologies in the country that could be pointing us to improvement in this virtuous replacement, quote unquote. that are far behind. We in this peripheral world is left behind. Oh, these positive technological transformations. Also, I would like to add something, please. Also, what you did, they saying is she's very actually she goes to the point. And with Marta shows how this all affects women. We have reinforced that also we put this places in our survey. It comes after a process where the women were highly affected, and also because of the pandemic situation. If we are already that we're the ones who already have the responsibility of taking care of our household and our family, our relative, our elderly, and also women now even worse. They have to stop working and start being dedicated to the family only. We see that there is less insertion of the women in the job market because of the pandemic situation. And it makes it harder for women actually to access jobs. And this brings worse results for us in general. These expectations are highly complicated, Gabriela said. We had a few more questions, but unfortunately we have to close. We have gone over an hour and a half of our webinar, but I would like to tell you all the titles of actually the debates of Rubrik are going on, and on the 29th, on 29th, we're going to have a debate on the digital economy. It's this important debate. We'll be delving on this topic. Also, we have three more lives coming on the pipeline. We'll be able also to discuss this deeper. We have other opportunities, and we are going to hold further debates. I want to apologize, but there are more questions. Marilis, I'm sorry, but our time is up for today. We have the difficulties with this, with the online technologies at a certain time only available to us. But we still have a lot to debate on this topic in terms of digital economy. In the Rebri webpage, you find this actually the debate that we held last year with an expert in this area of digital economy, Sofia Taserra. So you can download the debate. It was in November, December last year that we had this debate, and a summary of this debate. Soon enough, we're going to be launching the book, all the containing debates. We invite you to the launching of this book, actually, and and also we include everything we debated last year, and also the presentations that were made. It would be extremely interesting. We have a wonderful dialogue contained in the book. We have Siba Seberici, Sonia Watajari. We have important, very renowned personalities that participated in the preparation of this book. There's some women, excellent women from Argentina. We have several very specialized and knowledgeable people. And American politologist is also well known. She talks about the democratization of a society, very interesting topic too. And also we'll have some of the responses to those questions that you are posing, some of popular economy also, and we are going to be discussing further. Well, we'll have many other opportunities to keep on discussing, and I would like really thank Jose Marta and Kathleen for the analysis, the survey. Please read this companion. There is a lot of more information to be found in their material, and keep on facing this problem of civil society, not only internal but domestic, some of everyday problems that we have because of the Bolsonaro's government, but the international, economic, and environmental issues socially that have an important effect on our domestic policies also, Leah. But this, our policies are determined by the international geopolitical struggle, by hegemonic disputes by the United States, and in Brazil has to actually has to has not being able to allow the sovereignty and industrialization and its growth, because there's sovereignty of the superpowers on our country. These issues are even more important than we might imagine, and they have to be better understood by this society. We have to understand this deeper. And this is why intention with these lives, with this analysis and these important contributions. I want to thank once again Marta and Ketteling that were with us today. And for those who ask questions, our translators also, we want to thank them for being with us. If anybody would like to add a last comment, please. I think that your words summarize it all. And I do agree on the importance of us to be able to have actually 360 vision, and also, and we have and also we have to see what is happening here in Latin America and the international scenario and its impact on our country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Graciela, for the opportunity brought to us by you. Marta says. Kathleen says, I want to thank also for this opportunity. It was a pleasure being today with you. And I was able to learn also from Marta's presentation with the work we have, but it's great listening to her. Thank you to all of you. Good afternoon. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Stay safe. See you next time. Thank you so much for your participation.